This episode is brought to you by cloaked.com. They generate a private contact information and payment information for every online vendor that you sign up for. So that way, in the event that you are in a data breach, the attackers and the hackers, they don't have your actual information. They basically have burner information. It's a great product. I use it myself. Check out the link in the bio below. Let's hop into the show. Hey, Tim, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming today. I would love to just what's a 30-second intro for folks that get to know you?
I'll give it even shorter. I'm Tim. I run a VC fund called EssenceVC, and we like to back very nerdy and geeky people, building for other nerdy and geeky people in general. And prior to that, I was a founder, started a company. Venture backed, we exited Cloudera. Before that, I was an engineer for a while. So that's my background, sir.
Yeah, that's a great bio. And having scanned your portfolio at depth, I think that's a really great way of describing at least the portfolio version from the outside looking in. It's some really, really specific, deep, interesting tech. What makes you fascinated about infrastructure?
I think I just been working in this space for a while. As a person that started as an engineer, software engineer, right? Your journey will vary, just kind of like your interests, where you end up working with. I graduated from University of Washington. Every job opportunity is Microsoft, Amazon, and I think just by virtue of just working in these spaces, the problem that always drives me more, that I'm always intrigued. I'm just kind of person, even though I wasn't CS grad, I somehow I just like these very technical problems. Whenever you see a blog post, say we dug into assembly and figure out a performance issue, or we look into some sort of I was I love those, right? I think probably a lot of engineers as well, and I'm not the only one. But because of that interest, I would spend my time in open source, working in kernel, working on compilers. I just like that kind of things. So when it comes to job opportunities, I was really trying to get into what kind of things I like to work on. I just generally get gears more towards infra in general, because the type of things you work on are, if you really work on low level systems, compilers and stuff, as a professional, that's so niche and very hardcore. For someone like me, working on more system side, the distributed systems and general backend, that kind of thing, that's much more interesting. So I think as an engineer, my main background has been just working on, open source space platforms, from Halo 3 backend to Cloud Foundry to Spark to Kafka to Docker to Kubernetes. That's my job history, So when it comes to being a founder, it was a no-brainer. That was kind of what I'm going to do. And once I even started a company in this space, I even, when I was angel investing after I exited my startup, I wasn't really thinking I only backing these kind of things. I was actually doing food delivery app for my friends started, angel invested in a nail painting robots as well. But when it comes to hey, I really like to work with founders. What fund should I create? I think all my friends, one really good friend that told me how to start a fund, he told me, Tim, don't do any of that stuff. Stick to things you really, really know, which is really dev to infra. So, and I think he's right. When you really want to start something as a career, and you have a fun brand, you want to able to differentiate in this space. You have to able to create something I feel can almost create this N of one, you're the most unique fund in this universe kind of feeling to it. And the only way for me to do that is to pick the stuff I already know, So
right.
It's kind of no-brainer. Yeah. It just, I didn't be more consciously deciding this is the lane I should be working with.
Yeah, and it's probably a little bit self-fulfilling or sort of a positive feedback loop. That it's the more the deals you're doing that, the more you're learning about that, which gets you more and more an expert.
Yeah, it's all network effects, right? Because when I was the founder in 2016, I was raising money myself. And of course there was a Sequoia, so whoever. And of course there's famous people's fund. But beyond that, the funds that I feel we even have very compelled reasons to consider was the people that really focus on one particular sector. Those are the people I feel has much more resonance to me. So I think when I comes to chances for me to start my own, I'm a nobody. Got no rich friends and no rich background. Like we gotta start somewhere. That makes sense. So that's why I
Right.
kind of picked this lane as well.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but does it almost feel like more real to you by working on that stuff rather than sort of consumers and social and things like that, like where it might be more
Um,
ephemeral?
I worked on Halo 3. I don't think it's real and unreal. Like to me,
Okay.
it's not about what's real or unreal. I think it's more like what I feel like I can be good at, and
Mm,
what continues to make me feel more interested. Because and as an early engineer and a college grad, we're just confused. I just like I want to just learn whatever. So I did like I even went to like I'm into games, right? I even like consider like learn more about game development and going after like graphics and stuff. So I actually took part time. There's a school here in Seattle called DigiPen, right? From Nintendo, that teaches like game development. I actually took part time when I was working on games even before Halo 3, sorry Halo 5. Um, I was working at this small game studio as a backend engineer, and I even took part time classes to like learn more graphics, learn about game engine development, and learn all C++. And as I dug into it, I thought I would be enjoying working on graphics, because I like the cool looking, do some really cool effects and stuff. But once you actually start working on graphics, like, wow, this is like solving math equations, you know?
right.
And all the papers you're reading, everything is basically you're solving such a specific niche little math equation problems that end up showing different things on the screen, but that feedback loop is so long. Like you're not like dragging and dropping anything. Like it's totally different when you're doing graphic research. It's like so niche of a. And I did realize, okay, I'm not the kind of person that just want to work on a tiny sector of a problem and put all my time and energy into like the best graphics, on working on I don't know shadowing or something like that.
Right.
Like I actually
Right.
really enjoy building a skill set that can actually apply to many different things. Infrastructure to me is that, right? Is the infrastructure skill set is you're not really a vertical specific thing. I'm not building just for insurances to like billing or quoting or just medical like specific thing, right? Database is used for everything, right?
Hmm.
Compilers are used for everything. Infrastructure as code is used for everything. And what's cool about is that you're seeing your impact kind of like across the space rather than just like a smaller circle. To me, it's exciting because that means technically we're applying our what we built into many different places. Because I wasn't working on Mesosphere, working on Docker and Kubernetes. These things are powering so many different cool things. I don't know. Once I got into like this, creating like your own brand and skill set that can apply to many different things also creates more opportunities for ourselves. So I was thinking like at both sides,
Yeah,
and I
that's
was
an
like,
interesting framing.
yeah,
Yeah, I hadn't fully considered that piece of it. Do you feel like, I mean, this comes from, so I got into web development pretty young, call it like 12, 13. I did a lot of HTML and CSS, kind of this kind of, I'll call it a budget front end, web designer basically. And what was interesting to me is I had a cousin who was about 10 years older than me, and he kind of
yeah,
understood the full stack a lot better. But for me, like the way I thought about a website is like I didn't understand what FTP really meant at the time, but I
yeah,
knew if I made some HTML and CSS and just stuck it on this. And for me, a web host, I didn't even understand what an actual server was, but I just go to Bluehost or something like that and drop it. Like that was a website, right? And him and I always had these sort of debates about like how deep did I sort of need to understand the stack in order to be sort of have leverage or impact in sort of the broader industry. And part of me felt like my ignorance at that time was like a benefit because it was so abstracted to me that I was like, as long as I could just make HTML and CSS that drove a specific product need for either my customers or users or something like that, I was doing something useful. And I didn't really need to understand what a server was and all those pieces of it. And so that abstraction really helped me. And I feel like that trend generally has become stronger and stronger. But then as I dig into stuff like sort of that you're outlining, these like unique infrastructure plays, I'm like, man, it kind of feels like there's maybe instead of it being a trend of abstraction, there's almost like a barbell strategy of abstraction. There's sort of like the Webflow side, and there's people that can create value by sitting on that level. But it feels like there's this other side that you're certainly in, that is like going and not reinventing, but expanding in that world. So my question is like, do you think that there's a general level of abstraction that's going on that's impacting infrastructure, and that abstraction is making you move like up the stack a bit? Or is that sort of like my ignorance as an engineer, not understanding that full stack? Does that my question make sense?
I think somewhat, yeah. To me, you know, I'm not that old, but definitely no longer a youngster just out of college, 5 years, 10 years. We're into like 15-ish years now, almost into 20
I hear
years
you.
soon. I don't know. That's kind of like applies my age here. And like I still remember when we are graduating college and just getting into like developments, right? The things you need to think about are like pretty bare bones compared to what people have today, right? I mean, we're still using most of those tools. Coming back to your question, like, there's a general trend about like abstraction of infrastructure, and I think if you look at what even VCs have been backing since 2000s or 1990s, what does infrastructure means to people? Back in the day, backing infrastructure means I'm investing in power energy to power data centers, better hard drives
Right.
so I can compete with Seagates, people are building semiconductors. I mean, still today again, but back in the day was a hot thing. Like, oh, we need more people to build better chips, until
Right.
like TSMC, some other people just completely just dominates the world. Like, okay, there's nothing we can do. Like, it's just like such a dominant strategy. Like, no more Intels. There's no more like NetApps, right? Because back in the day, investing in something like a NetApp or a Cisco or something like that makes sense. They're so early. Networking routers are early. All this infrastructure stuff. And so to me, it's like there is always like a dynamics of a market in play. Like we need something. We need a computer on every desk, right? We don't have that yet. Okay, there's gonna be competition there. IBM,
Right.
Apple, Microsoft, right? And then once somebody becomes so dominant, right? It's like going after that Microsoft or IBM or HP again. Does it make any sense? It's like it becomes a race to the bottom kind of game. So then infrastructure becomes a layer on top now. Whenever you have a basic layer that's completely dominated by one player, but also that domination doesn't lead into like it kind of leads into commoditization basically
Right.
because there's like a cloud to happen, right? So these people doesn't really have any pricing power. Like you can just price your Intel chip to be like 10x better, because then Amazon will just build your own chips.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so this is like basically I feel like the world has been moving into like, okay, like they call it like a consolidation and debundling and unbundling to some degree. Like, we're gonna see the industry goes from like, okay, we have a need, this thing sucks, so we have somebody building something much cheaper and better that can eliminate certain things until everybody uses that thing, and then that thing is so limited, and we're just gonna go after this space. So I don't think there's like a very one thing that drives the trends for the last 20 years. It's just more like what is growing is certainly people that are using computers and data and all this stuff, AI, LLMs, all this stuff is growing. Like the usage demand and the product creating value in our lives has been rising. And the available tools for us, a lot of them are becoming so much more cheaper. And with all of that combined, we no longer really want to go and build a new VM for EC2, competitor. Like, why? It's cheap enough, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper. And
Right.
so now infrastructure, once you kind of like, okay, that's a solved problem. Let's solve other problems, right? Let's just assume, EC2 would just be cheap. We can just now go after other spaces, right? We can just assume certain things will be like pretty simple. Like internet will be internet. Like we don't need another Cloudflare, right? We don't need another like CDN unless they're solving very specific. So I think the
Yeah,
infrastructure
that's
world is continue to like innovate on top of each other, assuming things
right.
become commoditized. Like so there's a settled winner. So let's find a new player. Let's find a new like disruption that can be possible, right? And it just keeps disrupting itself, right? To one way or another. Like new technology is completely limiting a need. Google may not exist in 20 years because now we no
Right.
longer have to be searching text, right? And Google
Yeah.
may not be changing fast enough because of advertisement revenue. And so there is also an opportunity to kind of disrupt each other as well. So we'll see what happens in the long
Yeah, I
term.
like that framing. I like that framing. I think you have a unique, perspective being uh, sort of a founder and a venture capitalist, and obviously an angel, sort of in the transition of that. And I feel like, for me, I got into like traditional tech startups. Probably again, we're definitely aging ourselves here, but roughly like 15-ish years ago at this point. Um, and I feel like one of the trends that seems that I hear a lot of people talking about that I wanted to ask you about was like, is this world of the traditional, you raise your seed round, you go to the Series A, Series B, Series C, you're trying to IPO maybe in that D or E range, something like that. And I feel like there's this feeling right now that I'm hearing a lot of like, maybe we're sort of entering a world where you're having smaller companies and smaller rounds, and maybe you're trying to drive towards, I think every company obviously needs to be driving towards profitability sooner, but this idea of like having series, D, C, D, E, etc., is maybe a relic of the ZERP era. Like, are you sensing that there's a movement towards like smaller teams, smaller rounds, sort of a faster path to selling or going public and trying to drive liquidity in that way? Do you feel like that's a trend, or is that just, something that we're kind of just experiencing in this maybe this micro moment?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think as venture capitalists, I guess now the more you know, the more you don't know is always how I feel about any profession, you know. And now I'm into knee deep into these rounds and things, and it's like Jesus, it gets really confusing, right? Because sure, the ZERP era kind of like gets everybody just feel like everyone will raise Series C in 2 years, and you don't really need not much metrics, just great team, good looking team on the photo, and some cute logos. Somebody has to deploy money anyways, and so there's much more hopefulness when it comes to like capital being available. But your question, I guess, is like, is we're seeing like so much more smaller rounds and people going for profitability early? Yes and no, because fundamentally, there's no free lunch in business, as you know. If you go for profitability very soon, assuming there's no competition, certain players are driving towards some kind of distribution advantage early, you might just get disrupted. Because if you're studying businesses on a sort of like a macro level, not macro, like just more on a quantity level, and just seeing how different companies pan out. Ones that raise a lot more money, runs a little money, ones that raise no money. Because oftentimes
Right.
when we back companies, they also have competition come from bootstrap companies too, right? And look around the space, the probability, I would just say, not saying everyone will be the same, the probability of a bootstrap profitable company able to compete with a venture-backed company is much lower, just so far. Because I think, when you try to drive for profitability, there's a few things you have to make, right? One is like, you have to make sure you can enter a market, depending on how crowded the market is, how early it is, and what strategy you make. Most people, to drive revenue, you either have to bundle service with it quickly, because that's the only way to like get enterprise revenue quicker when you have almost no product. And R&D costs come from somewhere. Where to get that? Does everybody have money to kind of throw aside and back yourself?
Right.
Not really. So how you build products with no funding? You just get loans, get friends and
Right.
family,
Yeah.
but most likely probably take service revenue. I'm going to consult for you, spend 20 hours, maybe retain some parts of IP I can sell to others, but some we can still use for you because it's so specific to you, and come up with some kind of agreement and just kind of survive that way, And so I feel like it's right for certain kind of companies, right? I think there's a reason why it works for certain kind of companies like a MailChimp, right? Or some others we can think of that bootstrap to the way to like, or Zapier. Bootstrap is way to raise pretty little funding, I would say. Like Zapier is one of the ones like raise really little funding. I think Mailchimp is complete bootstrap, right? If I remember correctly. These companies tend to have more like, say, a particular problem they solve that doesn't take a crazy amount of R&D cost, but has some very specific stickiness that's attached to it. So it's not easy to rebuild another MailChimp. It wasn't a problem everybody was solving because people just assume it's not a big problem to solve. Sending emails, maybe that's the big problem. And it's like a pretty simple thing. So people usually with big money wants to chase for big issues. Things that can be like, 100 billion markets or whatever, right? And let alone, hey, there's a few cute products that work well, solve very specific problems, but end up actually being not so bad, right? Zapier is one of those examples. So it depends on space you're in. Like you're building an LLM company with foundation model, forget about it, right? 20 million upfront GPU costs. Bootstrap however you want to. And most of the founders has to be PhD, or work on, whatever, OpenAI. Like you're not going to throw that amount of money around.
Right.
So you gotta raise money, right? And then when you go into after like a database company, right? I want to build a new Postgres. Sure, you bootstrap. You can try to bootstrap, but there's way too much competition. Oracle is still sitting there. You got to make a significant jump with enough people building towards something, right? To build a new Snowflake, build a new Redshift. Like these significant technology bets, you need money, and it just takes a lot of effort to even get to a stage where it can compete. Versus spaces where like the competition is either non-existent because way too early in market or seems too small, or just like such a boring problem nobody wants to solve, that probably is also like market size has not a ton of obvious attributes for somebody. So I think it depends, right? Like, and not every company has to end up to be like IPO company either, right? A lot of people actually sell to PE these days, and to sell to PE, you don't really need crazy run revenue. Like 5-10 million ARR, you're good. I can sell it. Even 1 million ARR can sell it, right? You can sell anything. It's just a price difference, right? So for some people, that's good enough, right? They can just like a lifestyle business, they call it, right? Just making profitable. It will get to 2 million, 3 million. I'm good. I can sell games online. It doesn't matter. I have to be like so crazily disruptive. And I don't really. You can do whatever you want to as business wise. But if you want to become like an iconic company that disrupts the whole, like a big market with whatever, then venture capitalists with some certain rounds, your C and D and E, to some extent is necessary. I don't think every single round will remain the same. But the basic structure will look the same. C, Series A to get growth, Series B to kind of expansion, Series C to international. I don't think it will change drastically. It's just some of the rounds are probably unnecessary. Or some of the rounds are actually because Databricks, for example, they're still raising their rounds after all these years. I mean, they could go IPO after like 13 years with 100 billion market cap, like valuation. But, they choose not to because going into public, there's trade-offs too. So I think the world is much more dynamic, right? People actually are choosing to raise Series E, not because they really need the money, but they rather want to delay the IPO timing. Because once you're in the public, now you can run things so much differently, right? You have more baggage, you have public stuff to like figure out, right? So it's really, I think the world's become more complex now, maybe in a good way. Right, there's more options to exits. There's more capital, and there's more like ways of how the exit market has changed. But yeah, the ZERP era has kind of like passed us, where people just want to throw money for no reason.
Yeah, it's my first startup was a bootstrapped business that got to profitability pretty quickly. Although in hindsight, looking back, it was like our profitability line was really, really lean, which was great. But I was also like 23 years old and able to eat ramen every day. And so, but it was interesting. Like I kind of feel like I was blessed to have a unique way into the industries. It's almost in reverse a bit, starting with the bootstrap business, having success with it, selling it for a modest amount of money, but just sort of enough as a mid-20 something, and then starting Dolly, and then trying to go do the full venture back thing. And Obviously, we didn't hit the full home run that we wanted with that business, but just sort of learning about what venture looks like, and what scale starts to look like, and tens of millions of customers type things to navigate. And I, to your point, as I sort of go through my next chapters now, I'm like, yeah, I see it a lot more complex and nuanced, as you alluded to. It's like, I don't know, maybe bootstrap business isn't so bad. I don't know, maybe I do want to go do category disruption. Like, kids impact decisions on that as well. Like, my kids are young, my kids are old. It's interesting the entrepreneur's journey in that as well, that I
Yeah.
didn't fully appreciate as a youngin.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, yeah, family, your lifestyle choices, and I also feel like there's probably some like misconception about like taking venture money. Like, sure, not every company should be venture backup companies, right? Because they all end up looking to be like huge companies, right? Only huge companies really should be venture capital backed, right? But that said, it's not like choosing VC money is such a tiny, well, it's such a bad option. I will
Right.
say that, generally speaking, if you're trying to build a business that has a large impact in general, and you have that ambition, or at least like you have that directionally you want to do that, you should consider venture capital in general, because this is what the money is for. It's not free money, but it's also not like there's no like loan condition and interest rate attached to it for a reason. There are people willing to take that bet on teams for good reason as well. So I don't know. For me personally, because I started a venture back company, I didn't start a bootstrap company before, and we didn't get that far. But if I was to start something again, I would certainly actually raise from VCs as well, because one of the things I feel like is always difficult if you want to do something great is, you know, you there's so many things you need to get right, and money is part of the equation. Hiring the best teams, figuring things out. How do you do? A lot of things are associated to burn rates. So, you know, you don't want to limit your options. If you have the option to not limit your options, that'll probably be default point I want to start with. But of
Right.
course, like, hey, if I just want to hire just me and my friend to work on like a thing that can sell, if that's all you want to do, then you should keep at it, right? I think it's just like you don't want to take venture money to do your little mom and pop shop, right? But you also don't want to see like I want to do something big, but I really don't want to take VC money. When about bootstrap, like you're also running a lot of issues, right? You have way more stress on
Yeah.
your side, right? So that's just also like totally unnecessary, I think.
Yeah, and I think to your point a bit, it's like I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand, like they often there's a lot of hate online at VCs. And I always tell my non-tech friends, I'm like, you're actually really not mad at the VCs. There's certainly VCs to be mad at, but it's actually like it's the LPs expectations placed on the VCs that they do this deal with you that has expectation that has a line all the way through that. And it's not inherently good or bad, but the VC is just they have a different business model that might be it's hopefully aligned with your business model, but sort of the obligations they've made to their LPs can create tension between the founder and the LP. And so finding the right funds, the right VCs, and going into the arrangement and saying like this is our intention, this is our goal, I think to me
Yeah.
really humanizes slash reframes. It's like the VC's not saying you have to have 50% month over month growth, otherwise you suck. They're saying, guys, we took LP's money where they're already getting great returns on all the other investment stuff. Like we're selling them big returns in the in venture, and so you signed up for this money to have venture returns. I'm just telling you what those expectations are. I'm not like telling you you're a piece of
Yeah.
shit. I'm just saying that like that's the dynamic we're
I am telling you you're a piece of shit. It's just not the most direct way as possible.
in.
I know. I'm now in this business now, and I've seen more. We're back early stage, so we don't really like deal with like a lot of growth state expectation as much. But I would say like
Right.
VC's logic is actually really easy to think about, and most people don't really sometimes put it that simply put. Where we're like almost like a streamlined factory business for the most part, right? Our goal is to get to your Series A, or Series B, whatever, right? And because how we don't know how every company will end up with going back to pre-seed and seed stage. It's so far out.
Right.
Like your journey will vary a lot, right? So the only thing we can be more certain of is, hey, can we make sure we can get to your Series A? And so that side changes from year to year, right? And so we kind of move our targets a little bit. And the reason that bringing this up, because you're talking about like in a month or month 30% versus 40% versus 50%, because now we're understanding like, okay, Series A investors are looking at a bunch of companies that are all getting 50% because AI, right?
Right.
You can't just be like a cute little thing doing 20%, expecting you can go raise your next round, right? So that's why we sometimes are not trying to be. I don't try to like we're not usually backing things that has any metrics attached to it for next round. Infra is very different, but there's certain expectations you're trying to meet, right? Like your Series A investors are looking, can you raise your Series B and Series C's? And your Series C is like, can we make 3 to 5x return on this single return on some exit in the market? And everybody knows what the next people are looking for, And so we're trying to like figure out like where the puck has been moving along the way. It used to be like 100K ARR, you can raise a Series A. Now it's like 1.5, whatever, right? In relative into your space and what people think, because they're seeing the next round requires 5 million or more, and they're seeing the next because the multiples have compressed so much now. It's not longer just free money, and you get like a 200 million valuation with a 200K ARR, right? It's like public is just 5 to 10x, and 5x is already on a good case for like a lot of industries. You can't just come up with your own number outside, assuming you will meet them.
Yeah.
So this is the problem of venture capital to some degree, but also it is an opportunity, but I don't know. There is no other business model that works so far. So, therefore, why are VCs a little bit more gung-ho on some particular numbers? They're just trying to make sure that you understand this is what you're going to be hitting on. Because most founders, as you know, like, getting to anything is hard,
Right. Yeah. Just
who cares 20, 30, 40, 50%? Like, hey, I'm already stressed out to this. Like, don't tell me how to do better. I just fired my VP of sales, I had to deal with my pregnant, wife, whatever. There's like all kind of stuff you're stressed, you're managing. So of course, hearing this is very like super stressful. But we're always trying to delay the necessary like place where you're at. Assuming we'll just figure it out. And I think for VCs of the world, because they have more macro and portfolio view, it's like, hey, you only have 6 months left. You got to get to something like this to even have the best shot for you to raise your next round if you want to go for that. Right? Because if you don't, you have to find an acquisition. And acquisition does come for free. You can't just like assume someone will buy you at the end. Right, especially when you're running out of money, nobody wants to buy you when you're running out of money. There's like a lot of like these like factors in play. So for good and bad, I feel like VCs don't always act the way that founders can understand or like empathize with them. But the underlying message are typically similar. When it's like, hey, they're trying to provide a point of reference that you may not be able to get to see, and hopefully provide some kind of like. You don't have to listen to them, but you also cannot just like completely ignore them either, because they're providing almost like a quality bar that if you don't meet them, you're gonna definitely have a harder time raising your next round, and you'll run into trouble. You had to start firing a lot of people at that point.
Yeah. I have more thoughts on that, but I'm assuming you have a hard stop in like 2 minutes.
I can go a little bit longer. It's okay.
Because Warcraft just installed for me, and so I did want to see if we could try to spin it up. But I'm happy to.
I'm 73%. This thing is taking forever.
Oh no!
This might take another 10 to 15 minutes. Unfortunately, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we should try next time. If you're like, we can.
Yeah, maybe what I'll do. Yeah, maybe what I'll do is we can. I have like 1 or 2 more questions that specifically on that conversation, and then why don't we'll wrap, and if you're up for it, maybe later this week or early next week or something like that,
Yeah, kind of
we'll get
continue.
back on and we'll start right back
Let's
into
do it.
the game
I mean,
side
I
of
already
it, and
bought him. I'm
we'll
like
go from
installing the game. I want to
yeah.
try it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that the
No, no, no.
yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, we should, yeah. If we picked a game up front, and I should have just told, like, we should probably figure it out earlier. Yeah, yeah. But this is okay.
Well, I didn't expect it to. Man, I was figuring an old game like that. I don't know how old Warcraft 3 is, but I figured
Yeah, it's
it'd
been
be
like 10,
fast to
15 years
install. But
already to work on three. Warcraft 2 is like almost 20-ish years.
yeah,
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 we're getting old,
yeah.
man.
Uh,
We're thinking of like Mario
yeah.
Brothers or something.
I know, right? Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. I mean, I remember. Actually, maybe we can touch. Let's talk on video games a little bit. You said you got into video games, like what was the first game that was like, yeah, man, this is my jam. Like, do you remember the one that kind of like your eyes lit up and like this? That's the one that got you into the world?
Well, my dad like anybody bought a Nintendo, right? Back in the day. Just getting into like just Super Mario Brothers 1 was super fun. And of course we got a PC pretty early as well. So just playing like, like Ninja Turtles and all these like sort of like super early floppy disk games. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's anything, probably the most defined game that got me really interested. Funny enough, it's a game called Rainbow Six. Because that
Okay.
was actually
Yep.
my
Yep.
Rainbow Six has a couple of versions. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six is probably not the most well-known first-person shooter game, but that's the first game I really spent a lot of my elementary school time with, and I'm semi-pro on that. I actually went to tournaments. We won number one in Taiwan where I grew up. So we actually bought
Wow.
sponsored. We have sponsored, shirts. We
Pre
actually come in as like
yeah,
a pro
esports. Wow. Yeah.
pro player to like exhibition and in certain plays. The company will come have dinner with us because they want to like have us like help. Like I don't know. It's a very
Wow.
small scale. It's a very tiny market with a tiny game, but it was funny to have that
Yeah.
experience. So for me, that's like a very interesting game because the biggest difference of Rainbow Six and other first-person shooter games is not as fast-paced. Is more realistic. Like once you get shot in the leg, you start like wobbling. And you have to like do like heartbeat sensor. You have to pick around like different things. Like it's a little bit
Right.
more strategic than just straight up like who can like move your mouth and headshot somebody fast. Like that's like a Counter Strike. People are like snapping mouses and stuff. Like it's not important in
Right.
Rainbow Six. It's more like, okay, how do we move people? How do we do like certain like flanking actions, and how do we like position like team and spaces? That's more important. Yeah. So I really enjoy the team aspects of it. Like we'll have to come down and draw maps on teams, how we move, how we go and play, like clean the rooms and this and like I actually more enjoying the team getting together and figure out what we
Right.
want to do. And that's really fun. Like we actually go do it, and I was like, oh, this worked. We like kick everyone's
Yeah,
ass,
and that was
on and then beating other countries' players and stuff like that's just like a fun thing, right? Yeah.
yeah, it was a cool era too. I mean, I think it sounds like we're roughly the same age, and it's like, I mean, it feels, mostly computer game or games generally were single player, and then obviously you had like the local co-op, but then like, yeah, it's sort of like as I hit that middle school, high school range, this sort of like, LAN parties were certainly an element there that felt
Yeah.
far superior to sort of any online playing. And I always like to tell people this is I got an Xbox for Christmas when it first came out, and Halo 1 was out, and there was a thing called XB Connect where you could play Halo 1 online
yeah, yeah,
before
yeah.
Xbox Live
Yes.
existed, and
Yes,
some
yes,
some
yes.
amazing guy hacked together some local LAN hack that you could do local LAN on the internet, and that I spent so many hours, and it was so. I try to tell young people about this. I was like, I had to go into a chat, talk to some random guy, but it was like he was in a local. Our two Xboxes were connected, so like his buddies, if they accidentally toggled the wrong score setting or the wrong team, like we had to reset the whole thing, and I had to message the guy, "Hey, your buddy screwed up." It was chaos. It was absolute chaos. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
been
But
funny to like
those fun
transition
days.
to that era.
But it feels so cool to be part of something brand new experience and nobody else like kind of had that same experience, right? Yeah, yeah. That's how I feel like playing
Yeah.
like LAN games back in the day as well, and other things. Yeah. Anyway, it's fun, sir.
Yeah, they actually had really great latency and yeah, all that. Where do you see sort of AI and LLMs and the impact, and where do you sit on this? Is this a boon for society? Is there a real risk there? Like, I guess I'm just kind of curious more of like having beers. Where do you see this kind of playing out over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I I think we all are trying to guess the impact and how big of a change eventually get, because technology is so. I'm sure everybody working in AI has seen this coming to some degree, because you hear all these like folks. I work in AI since 7 to 8 years ago, right? I'm the OG. We know AI is going to change the world, but knowing AI will change the world doesn't mean you know how the AI is exactly going to pan out, right? In the next 5 to 10 years, and I think the hardest thing to predict is the timing and sort of like the really the ripple effects that really comes with it. Because ChatGPT made it so easy to access, right? It used to be AI/ML was so difficult to access because you need to be PyTorch training. You finally get a model, and it's so specific to one use case. Everything is so particular, right? So you don't really feel like, oh, because only certain people gets to have these like specialized power, right? You don't really have this like general like enablement. But I think the large language models like made a grandma able to like start asking AI
Yeah.
characters and and all this
My mom.
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And
I
you're
like.
looking at like the first effect to consumer is like loneliness and like girlfriends and stuff. It's like the
Right.
99% use case is like this, right? And so
Yeah.
I feel like we're just seeing the starting point of how this changes society in a pretty massive way. Because you look at how the first thing people attach on is their more immediate needs to some degree, right? And we're just getting started because this is just text chatting. I mean, this has
Right.
literally become video chats, right? Real time. Because
Right.
all the latest stuff we're looking at is like real time image and video generation. Actually, even real time video generation in some level. Right now, it's sort of like real time filter or effects applying on like webcams and stuff. So you can have a person standing in front of a webcam, and it completely changes this person's faces and backgrounds, sort of. But you still need to like have something applied on it. Very soon, this is like true real time generation. Like you imagine Sora, all the stuff you look at is actually almost like produced in real time, right? Less than 500 milliseconds or less.
That's crazy.
So you have this like this effect of like, I think, first of all, I think AI/ML, LLM right now, 2024 and 2025 is truly the year of multimodal, where audio, video generation, all this kind of stuff is continuing to expand. Like all the latest companies we're looking at is either some kind of video or image or audio related stuff. Foundation model for videos, new foundation model for audios, new foundation model to better images. And the nuances with it, like video is not just, I can generate one. Because generation is fun, but you can't really get things right? So like, how do you do much for controllability? Like video, you don't want to regenerate every single time. I want to change something. So change a particular scene, do a little cutting here, right? Able to do nuanced changes within a video. That's coming. So, it's amazing how once you're able to like find an unlock and you get the whole world excited, now we're just seeing the massive investment all coming into this space, right? When all the eyeballs are on AI, then the whole world is trying to find much more different and innovative ways that build on top of each other. So I think the effects is really hard to imagine, really. Because I think part of it is technology-wise. Like, I think next 2 to 3 years, we're probably going to see true, like, AI and human sort of blendedness in some way, where, like, it's almost feel like AI is part of human society. Because right now it's like a tool. It doesn't feel like a person. But then AI will start to become like a little bit like a person. It doesn't truly interact with you in a whole independent way. It doesn't have a home address and has like a social security card or stuff like that. But to some degree, you also need that too, because AI can now have like general purpose with an image and a video and all these identity stuff can be attached to it. And now what do you do, right? Because humans can interact with it for work, humans can interact it with. So I don't think it's like robotics probably going to come a little later, but 5 to 10 years, I think what will happen is robotics going to come into play. All the amazing like content generation is on the fly. But I don't think we can able to get 100% accurate results from any AI anytime soon, right? It's just the nature of AI.
Right.
It's always going to be like a human error, like an error based on just by design. So we need to have a human in check. But then the portion of this would just changes. Right now it's like it only works 50% of the time with only text with some images, right? But not over time, right? I think we're going to see AI becomes more like pretty autonomous, like call it agents, right? Autonomous agents that can do way more stuff than we can imagine today. So our jobs are less about figuring out how to do something. Our job is to figure out how to get AI to do something right. Right.
Yeah, I think it's a great
that would be
point.
like the primary job of human being to a certain extent, not everything, but to a certain extent, that will become a big part of it. And so I think it's hard to play prediction, like when and how, but this is almost like in 10 years time, it feels like we're going to fundamentally change how we do everything. Do work, do social, do human, do parenting, do the relationships, right? And as long as you want to like keep on the same way, like before phones, people are already complaining like, man, these people are like no longer looking at each other, right? Looking at phones and consuming the media instead of like your old, nostalgic, everybody in a fireplace with all the like, camaraderie and everything. And you lose that, right? I mean, not saying this generation is better. It's not, right? We definitely have lost that. But we got a lot of different things, but we also lose some part of it, right? Through AI, we're probably going to lose even more, certain aspects of society more. So I think from a VC point of view, it's almost like it's inevitable. This will come. There's nothing we can really stop or change about it, right? So we might as well try to be part of the train that's just keep riding, right? We want to be part of the bigger advantage change, and also hopefully be part of the conversation to figure out some sort of ways to like doesn't go crazy, right? But human society will always find ways to like figure out guardrails to one way or another. But I think we just fundamentally will change, just like I think smartphones changes human society quite a bit now.
For sure.
AI is way beyond now. Like I can imagine really every day waking up and talking to AI agents only.
Yeah, I mean,
start to AI agents start to work, AI agents to start everything.
Yeah. To your point, it's like, I mean, I use a lot of reminders and timers to really in like to-do lists, right? And like those are starting. I start to use ChatGPT to interface with some of those. And so it's like I'm already starting to use elements of that, and so it would be nice. I'm excited about Apple's apparent bringing of ChatGPT in the OS/Siri level, which I think will really unlock a lot of that. So I totally agree. It's interesting too. Like it was great to see ChatGPT launch. I forgot what they called it, but like their JSON object kind of verification process, and I had been building like a little app on my own just to get deeper into some of the AI stuff that had happened in the last year, and I found myself like I would do one API call at like with the latest model, I think at the time was 4, and then I would ask for a JSON object, but they would send me back often a bad JSON object, and then I would have it run like at a ChatGPT like 3 turbo and say, hey, here's a bad JSON, convert it into a good JSON, and it was like good enough to fix it, but it was like it needed, at least at this time, like this sort of like a human to come in and say, hey, you're probably going to give me bad back junk, but I'm actually going to give it back to you to go fix because you're actually decent at fixing code. And so it did make me think of like, oh, like I often think about it as being one like entity, but this sort of specialization is starting to then send the very specific errors back to itself. It's like, hey, you just told me this thing. Can you provide all the links for it? And it's like, oh yeah, sorry. Like I that was a phantom thought. Here's actually all the links, and then okay, now that you have the links, now aggregate those back into the answer. Like I suspect those types of little daisy chains were going to get really, really good.
Yeah, and I to some degree also agree with Sam Altman's like general sentiment. It's like we're living in almost like the mainframe era, because if you live back in the day, right, where people are still like, where does bugs come from? This term, remember, right? It's you literally find like rodents running around, and these main computers really have to like pluck them out because computers are massive, right? And he requires like 10 people to just like able to like operate the tapes around, rotate different things, right? Like on and off the different bits, like make a phone call needs like switching, right? Somebody has to like dial 5, 6, 7 like ringing, and you finally get to do like that feeling of technology. We're in that, right? This nuances we're still figuring out JSON. I think it's not going to completely go away in some sense, but it will like. We're no longer think about that layer much anymore, because eventually, right? This is almost becomes low-level programming. Like I'm doing assembly, it feels like that, right? The abstraction level is gonna keep growing. Like people that actually knows assembly will be like people that do Fortran, like they're just like dinosaurs. Only a few people. It doesn't change that much, right? Unless you like really innovatively change the computers, but it makes no sense. Like the cost of computing has gone down so low. The cost of GPUs will go pretty low, and so all these will go to almost like zero at some point. Then it's not that important. Like chasing after like the nuances of calling like your prompts, the nuances of figuring out what GPUs to run, the nuances of this and that. Like these people will just keep making it better and better and pushing it better and better, and it just becomes like an equalizer effect, right? Where we're all going to think about next. From this point on, next year on, we're probably going to be already focusing on more on just how to start automate a lot of the LLMs that are getting way better already. How do we start to like becoming better way to like orchestrate the various kinds of LLMs in a way that's very productive for our use cases? Right now, it's like we just assume ChatGPT is everything. GPT-4, GPT-5, like GPT-6 will come out. GPT-7's like back in the day when 386, 486, we remember like, huge jump. Intel 3 processor is like giving you 5-10x speed. Your disk drive like is 10x better. Like holy wow, my Windows 3.1 like loads from like 3 minutes to like down to a minute. That's crazy. That is insane. Like how do you just hit a button and your computer ready to go for like 5 to 10 minutes? It used to take like hit it, go grab coffee. It's gonna take a while. This baby needs a little warm up. Now it's like I don't even expect it to run that long at all. Right? I want to start looking at my email right after I like, or I just keep my computer running all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't go overheating. It does do all
my
that kind of
MacBook
stuff,
restarts in like 10 seconds. I'm like, I don't even know how that like. I hit the button and I swear like the screen pops back up and I'm typing in my password. I'm like, to your point, so much has changed.
But we've changed so much. The expectation has changed so much that we no longer even want to care about those details. We're starting to think about like, computer's going to be always on. LLM's going to always return like mostly good responses. Where we're able to actually create much more able to like figure out the capabilities and the responses. Like it's going to be like an outlier when things are wrong, and we're just going to be expecting it. It's almost like, when we go to the cloud today, it used to be EC2 instances only keep up like only half of the day,
Well,
like Amazon only gives you like basically, it's a VM, but sorry, it runs maybe it advertises 80%, 90%, but we all know it's BS, right? It just you get a random machine that's just like complete like crap, right? So if you actually try to use a cloud 20 years ago, like 15, 20 years ago, I remember I have to like write down the I-3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers on the VM we get. And then after a while, you look at, okay, something's wrong here. Go SSA into each one of them, see which one's still alive, and then kill that node, get a new one. Because, this is like the baby, you're babysitting these things, right?
Yeah.
At some point, we know how to do that for LLMs, right? The LLM's going to be way better, right? It's going to have
Yeah.
much return responses. It's going to have multimodal capabilities from day one. Like GPT-4o, it's already have that. You can ask for images, video, and audio all in one model, right? So we don't have to even worry about like all this stuff. Like we're going to have like a basic, good general computing that has like most of your compute capabilities with better responses. All that stuff will start to become like a package. And of course, underneath the scenes, GPT-4 is not a single model, right? It's an
True.
MOE. It's actually a series of models, but we don't care. Like, do we actually care GPT-4? Like, how many models are there?
No.
I mean, they're gonna tell you anyways because it's like complete trade secrets for them,
Right.
right? So for our perspective, it's actually one model. It's not. But this is like the world we live in now, right? We only have like a text box we play with, and you have like 20 models behind the scenes, 30 models behind the scenes. You're constantly changing the weights. You're constantly changing the updates, right? We don't know. At some point, we're gonna create more abstractions that feels like that, right? And then it's not just like your Cloudy 3, right? This is almost like the Pentium 2 with the AMD whatever back in the day, right? This is all gonna be somewhere in the history books. So I think it will be fun to see I think there's the introduction of HTML, right? There was an introduction of PHPs. There was an introduction of like your .NET frameworks, right? There's sort of the explosion that's really started from there. The phone started, and we have the explosion of iOSs and Android, right? These abstractions allows us to really start to create these capabilities together. I'm assuming we're gonna start seeing abstractions that really create fundamentally no longer even think about those text boxes. Those text boxes are meant for I think actually one day OpenAI will create a different API into LLMs, which is not a text box. Because text boxes are it's great to get started for everybody to know the power of AI. It's horrible for actually having deterministic or some level of deterministic interaction with LLMs. So we have to actually change the interface into a way to sort of like have a much more different kinds of interface going in. Like
what does that even mean? Like, I mean, I know you're sort of pontificating a complete, like, it's a sort of an unknown, but like, what's even the range of possibilities of what that would look like?
I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be somewhere between like a SQL statements and stuff like that, right? A more structured way to describe what you really want. Because SQL, if you run SQL at all, like pre-SQL, it's actually all like procedural. You remember, like the IBM, back in the day, writing data from your stuff. It's like procedurally look at this thing, write a bunch of data attributes. Like it looks so arcane-ish, but that was the world we live in, right? And then we realized, databases are getting so much better. We don't want to reinvent a new language every time we have a new database, right? And all the optimizations that are going to be happening under the scene, we don't really want to come up with them over and over and over. So what do? We have a declarative way called SQL, which is just like, okay, just give me what you want. Select star from this table where A equals X, right? And group by whatever, right? And then do another order by whatever descent, right? The reason we have to have the declarative language is because underlying this scene, every database actually is somewhat the same but quite different. But there's general optimizations, right? There's like query optimizations, there's query completing, all that kind of stuff to make queries, which is like just tell me what you want, right? There's enough of a concise language to tell me just what you want, but it also has enough like information and logic to it that we can always expect. Whereas today, prompting is just like you're just throwing whatever garbage you can, and LLM is so good at returning garbage to you. But I don't know exactly is all the intent. I don't know all the preconditions. I don't know the postconditions. I don't know what exactly is return responses. I don't know what exactly things to exclude, not to include. What are the type of length of response? What are the type of interactions? Do you want multi-step, single step? Do you want like image? Do you want to have some sort of like different branches? I want 4 different level of probability of things, and you can follow which one is the right one rather than just like one single shot of response you get, right? People are coming up with different abstraction on top because we're realizing this is what working with LLMs feel like. It's no longer deterministic outputs because LLMs can't give you that. I mean, unless you have like temperature 0 or something but it's very different type of systems require different type of outputs and different type of interaction with LLMs. So I think the world should change, right? The text box is just a starting point of an interface. We want something way more, as a programmer, I want something much more specific that I can declare. That,
Right.
hey, I want my LLM to do this.
Right.
And either your provider, you're figuring out how to optimize it for all this stuff I want, or something else on top is able to like figure out all this stuff I want, right? And today we're living in a world where like we're still figuring out all the possible things we can do, and also figuring out what are the limitations of the platforms. This will go away, right? Like we don't think about
Yeah.
databases no longer support this and that. Like okay, most databases got to support the SQL statement because that's a standard. And when we start to like just assume, and we start to really able to build applications in a reliable way, because now we have figured out, okay, databases need to be up. It supports some level of SQL. Everybody's support is different, but enough of a SQL. We're able to have a driver. We actually write an application. We can go to the cloud, ask for a database, and it just works, right? That stuff wasn't given. But today we're like doing this like 1950 style, I'm still like finding how I'm still staring at a mainframe like, how do I do this thing, right? Like this like punch cards era. So I think this is where it's interesting for a programmer's perspective. You either want to be like figuring out how to be part of changing the underlying system, because this would be like the fundamental era. It's just almost like, I worked on System R, I built the first Postgres, I built like that side is really interesting. Or you want to be on the one on the top, right? Like, hey, I'm going to want to try to come up with the new abstractions that really make this difference of solidifying what does it feels like. And you can also want to be at the top either. Okay, SQL is going to be here. How do I start building apps so much differently and better? And what is the new distribution capabilities that allows me to build something way more interesting? And so everybody's exploring different ways, right? When it comes like the difference of the stacks, but
I love
think
that.
the role is going to change quite a bit here.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. I think because of how good LLMs are at taking plain English and converting it into a thing, but your point is so well taken, because even with the prompt engineering, which obviously is kind of, I think, not quite fallen to the wayside, but is not as hot as it was. But I think anyone who interfaces with these all the time, we all have our own little tricks of like I tell ChatGPT all the time, no yapping is like a little thing that I do, right? Because I'm just I want to ask.
There's like emotional things. I saw papers
Right.
where like you had to be emotional with your LLM, so it gives you 10% better responses. Like great,
Right.
Now you
Right.
write papers on this now.
And so to your point, like it's like, okay, it's actually almost misleading because we're interacting it with plain English. It's like having a specific declarative language does really, really fine tune that, which actually might get far better results and save time. Like that's really cool. I had never even contemplated it, because it almost felt like we landed at the golden solution. But you're painting out all these examples of like, yeah, there's even better golden solution if we took some time to sort of learn a new language interface directly with it. I love that. I had never considered that at all. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's very helpful for us, right? Else means like anybody want to build on top of LLMs. Because today we have to figure all this stuff out ourselves, right? We had to read papers and like, oh wow, I had to do this sort of prompting style, this sort of instruction tuning, how to give this like few shots examples first, and
Right.
end with this sentence, and then I have to do this kind of thing. And I had to figure out like, should I fine tune a model? Should I do a better prompting? Should I do a RAG with it? Should I merge some models together, right? Should I do all this like weird stuff, right? And a new version comes out, and Hugging Face had a new model. I was like, oh wait, did I miss out some kind of new crazy thing too? Like,
Right.
you're figuring out like it's just so many options in this world. Like this is going bananas. Where when you write a SQL statement, it's pretty plain and simple. Like I want this, I want the best thing for me, and to some level degree, probably not exactly the same, because the fundamental things is changing quite a bit. But I think to get so many more people able to build and able to trust this is a reliable thing, we want to actually move towards something more declarative. And so, because if you do that, fine tuning or not, prompt tuning, prompt optimizations, it's somebody else's job to figure out, not me.
Yeah. Right.
I just want to build apps that feel like it's actually the best outputs, right?
Yeah.
And of course, because there's like a race to be the better accurate results kind of thing. So people are kind of like, oh, we figured out some tricks here. You didn't. And like, I see all kinds of tricks. Right? We compress the prompts so it's much more compact. So we're able to pack like, 2x more information than normal prompting, right? Because I can change the wording to long word, turn into X, and just like replace it with a compression scheme, right? All this kind of like playing games with like this context window business. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always intrigued with people's level of tricks they do, which is so temporary, very, very temporary. And I think if you want to be betting on the future, you want to fundamentally rethink how you have to foresee what's going to happen underneath, and then come up with something that hopefully is a little bit more future proof. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, that's probably. I do. By the way, I just want to say I've said this to people. Can't recall who introduced us. I feel like it was Tony, but I'm not positive who introduced us. But maybe it was Mayor. But I just want to give you like thank you. You were one of the most helpful angels, and you put a really small check in my last startup, and you've just been like, I just want to just words of appreciation and just really thank you that like I felt like if I message you for a question or advice or connect to an intro, like you were just always down, and it was always just really, really amazing. And so as a founder, it was just really great to work with you. So I just wanted to give you a little a thanks.
Thank you for giving the opportunity to have able to play with your app. I felt like this could be the future as well, right? When we tried it, it felt that way, right?
It did.
Yeah,
I think it was what I liked about it at that time. It was I was trying to do social in the kind of Q4 2019, Q1 of 2020, pre-COVID, and it felt like I was going around trying to fundraise for the core idea, and people were like, "Social's dead, dude. Social's baked. Like the whole business model is baked." A lot of my VC friends were like, "Don't spend your time on social." And then of course COVID hits, and then social's like the hottest thing in Q2 of 2020. You got Clubhouse and you got TikTok really taking off in America, House Party, all these things that were sort of pulling at different little threads of the space that I was trying to operate in. And man, got my ass handed on me. And it was really frustrating as a founder because I felt like I was too soon and then I was too late. Yeah. And then it was just like, oh my gosh. And then to see threads of the hypothesis sort of be born as features in these other products, I'm like, it is what it is. It was part of the grind, part of the scary side of building and social.
Sure. But like if anything, if you still have passion for it, you should try it still, because I don't think social is dead at all. It's just like social has the expectation of social is going to keep changing.
Yes.
So people don't want just like another step function, only talk to your friends that you know already, or like, change the way the feeds look because of this and that. Or like we're playing this sort of like micro game, but of course AI is so fundamentally different. So a lot of people are doing like AI generated content for all kinds of purposes. But I think one thing TikTok did so well is there's a form factors difference, there's algorithm difference. There's a lot of things that are different, but it still fits the human desires and needs. Like fundamentally, why people will love it. It's not like I have to reinvent the wheel to figure out why you might like this, right? It's like we all kind of know, but they actually kind of like did enough of different things to really hit. And
for sure,
that's what I love about it. Like I think consumer social. I'm not a consumer investor whatsoever, but as a consumer to these things, like. I don't think we're like happy just to use TikTok.
Right? Yeah. It's
like TikTok is like you're interested in what's happening, and also interested in all these weird stuff that's going on. It's like it's a trend thing. You want to keep in a loop into some level, but also it's just so specific to certain things over and over, right? So I think if anything, there is a need for a new TikTok that has less of this like purely for fun kind of like idea to it, right? I actually rather watch TikToks that's much more fundamentally like useful.
It's like there's a drug
fun and
element,
useful,
or
I would
like,
say.
right,
Like you can't just be
right.
like boring and looking at lectures, right? Because we have enough lectures on the world, like they're hours and hours long. But I think like these concise, fun TikTok videos with AI generation and doing some interesting things. That to me is like just like people are doing like Jeopardy on generation games,
Right. Yeah.
or like some kind of like TV talk show on generation. Like this is
That's
gonna be what the
interesting.
future is like. I actually want to see all the information I care about being generated to like a fun comedy show. Every day I watch it, something
That's
like that.
interesting.
This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it'll be.
Those are
Like
different.
we have
Yeah.
enough content out there. We don't
Right.
need to generate more content. We just need to represent it differently.
Yeah.
For humans.
That's interesting.
And I think people love it if you can consistently find ways to do that in a
Yeah.
repeatable way.
I think one lesson I learned as a founder through it is that I kind of had this idea of like, hey, go raise, sort of venture capital, go build this really cool social product, experiment. And I do think sort of now bang on the backside of it too. I'm kind of like maybe what part of the beauty of social is like, it's sort of a nights and weekend app that you put together. Like,
Yeah.
hey, here's this kind of wacky. I'm thinking of the origin of Twitter, right? Those guys are obviously a little different because they sold Blogger and whatnot. But like, hey, we want to just do short text message based things and just see what happens. Like that vibe seems like the right approach for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
lots of just hacky, fun, little wacky experiments, and then ones that hit, yeah, sure, pour venture capital on it, but don't go get the venture capital and then go try to do
and then
the thing.
go
Like,
try
just,
to do the
just hack
experimentation.
every 2 weeks, launch another wacky weird app and just
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah.
Like I like that model better.
I think that's actually the way to do it. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
So just for the audience listening, so we're downloading we're downloading Warcraft 3, and it's taking for absolutely ever. So we're going to come back. We're going to play a round of it, and we'll do more tech questions and conversations as well. But we'll for the audience, it'll just be a couple seconds, but for you and I, it'll be weeks or days or weeks, I suppose. So let's adjourn here, and then we'll hop into some of the actual playing when we get back. Sound good?
sounds great, man. Let's do it.
All right, we're back. Tim, we're about to hop in some Warcraft. You ready?
I'm ready. I haven't started playing this thing for a long, long time, but why not? Let's try it.
Yeah. How many years did you say that it's been for you?
I would probably say close to 20 years, right? This game has been up for a long time ago.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever played Warcraft 3. I did prep for a little bit. I played a lot of Warcraft 2, but we'll see how this goes. So, what's your strategy here? Like, should we get a bunch of gold to start building things? Like, where's your head at here?
I try to remember what happens during the game. Yeah, usually you had to get gold for sure.
Yeah, I think
You had to
gold
create some-
and lumber.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then we'll want to build like a barracks or something like that, probably pretty quickly.
Yeah, the barracks is most important because you got to protect yourself, So yeah, just start building some stuff.
All right.
I
I'll just
can
get
remember
some-
exactly how the order goes, but it's something, yeah.
something. What, do you feel like these games helped you in sort of business or even your career, like sort of thinking through this, or was it just,
It's impossible to tell because when you're playing like when you're a little kid, right, and stuff like that. I don't think you think about business or anything. Obviously, I feel like probably the most, the thing that probably draw me most around games and anything else is obviously there's a thinking part of it, but what I enjoyed the most, I think I told you, I was playing competitively in the past when I was like almost like elementary school to middle school. I was playing like first-person shooter games, and that really was the team aspects of it was the most interesting part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting to play games with other people. So you had to plan for something, you had to compete for something like that. That actually taught me quite a lot.
Yeah, I feel like with like these types of games, like resource management and sort of understanding trade-offs, right? Like if I build this unit that is slower but stronger versus a lot of fast but cheap, and like I do feel like those help priority decisions in an entrepreneur. In my path up as like a product manager, feels like it helped a little bit for sure.
I think so. Didn't like the Shopify founders said they actually buy a game for every employee to play. The resource management
interesting.
specific. Yeah. So
I like that. Yeah, I did a lot of Civilization. That was one of my big games, and I do feel like that did teach me a lot of trade-off type stuff that really helped the framing.
yeah. Oh man.
But I feel like where's your position being a father of like A lot of games, few games, a lot of screen time. Like, how does that also translate in sort of like as you pass on your own experience into the children?
Yeah, I don't know. I think my partner and I have a little different like philosophy on this. But it probably doesn't have to be video games. Actually, I think board games are great, right?
Yes.
A lot of these like the little kids, when you play board games, especially like playing card games, most of the things you want to think about in playing card games are similar to playing video games, but without like the clicking and because I think a lot of these video games are training you to like do reaction times and playing strategy in a very specific way. But generally speaking, card games are great, So actually, I feel like taking kids, I even know like I was even at a doctor appointment one day, and the doctor told me like, oh hey, how old are your kids? Oh, he's 7 or 8. Oh, you should go play Pokemon. I take all of my kids to play Pokemon all day. I was like, what? And it told me about like how competitively they play Pokemon with, and apparently it's like it's not only just for like training your how to think and stuff, but also like having a very specific community of friends. You have a very shared hobby with, and just something you can have like a shared like thing to do, and that's really like it creates this very special bond and friendship as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
So
that's an interesting framing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I played a lot of like sports games too for a while, and I remember just being like, oh, my brain's not getting better or sharper just playing Madden, and they're in this type of defense, run this type of offensive play. Like I'm almost just pattern matching, which to maybe the first 40 hours into the game was fine, but then I just felt dumber as I was playing the game longer. But like games like Civilization and Warcraft and the strategy ones. Yeah. Felt like it compounded a bit. But what I really dislike as a parent myself now is all these games with all the microtransactions. And I'm like, seeing my children effectively want to gamble. And I'm like, man, that's not what I want to see. That's bothering me about a lot of the modern game business models as well.
Yeah. I think modern games are more like, the Farmville type, the social games. And, a lot of these are becoming like, it's more like fast react. Remember, you click through certain things are all luck. It's on your phone. You type like scroller, shooter type stuff. I know it's fun. Your Candy Crush kind of stuff is interesting. I used to work on social games actually.
Oh, really?
And if you actually work on social games as a business model, it's super fascinating, right? I remember I was working on like social games. I worked on Halo 5. Afterwards. Getting that experience working on like a little like the difference between like a typical social game and a AAA game was pretty interesting. But I was like, wow, this is actually it's all the same. You're basically looking to build a way of a franchise, right? To continue to make everybody able to keep playing your game. It's just like the way you make money is so different.
Yeah. What do you make of this sort of movement of like, the Fortnite style where you give out the game for free and then you're selling seasons and packs? Like feels like a pretty innovative business model. Is that sustainable, do you think?
I think it's somewhat sustainable. Like League of Legends, Riot's definitely made it like a lot more possible now if you're looking at how they've done things. But yeah, it's so hard to make a game in general. And then you have to make a game. Oh, you're getting attacked. Look at that.
I'm getting attacked bad, by the way. And I think they have a lot more units than I do as a heads up.
Yeah, I'll go help you.
Shit. Oh, man. This might be bad. I had about 3 grunt, lots of peons. They seem to have left.
Oh, he went. Yeah, he left. We should probably go find them.
So you're down to the right. You're purple. Okay.
Yeah, I'm purple. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, are you building many watchtowers or anything like that?
No, just one actually. I built 2 barracks just to make sure we can continue the production more.
That's a good idea. Let me fire one of those up.
Yeah, this is a memory game. I remember like, what did I do before?
No. Yeah, I'm.
Okay, you're good. Oh, you're back, right? You're back.
I got a couple units here.
Oh, you got the heroes as well.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. What kind of games do you grow up playing?
That I played growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a lot of Civilization really comes to mind. Warcraft 2. As I got older, Madden, Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I felt like Grand Theft Auto 3. I came out when I was, I think, a freshman in high school, and
Yeah.
that game just absolutely blew my mind in terms of what they were able to accomplish as developers. And obviously they were, really pushing the limits of what was appropriate and all that. By the way, I'm getting more slaughter. They are coming hard after me here.
Come to
Might need
over
some
here.
unit. Yeah. Now they're getting all my peons, which is, man. Have you gotten attacked at all?
No, just you. Did you build heroes, by the way? There's an altar hero that's really important to.
Oh, I did build an altar.
Yeah, because you don't have a hero, it's really hard to you have to take your hero to actually level up and stuff like that. I remember like the details now.
Okay. I do think I missed that memo on the Warcraft 2. I see. All right.
Oh, they got a siege. Oh, they got stuff going at you.
Yeah, they are not taking it easy on me. Say that much. Oh, did you send a hero up? Perfect.
Yeah, we probably need to start over.
Why is that?
Yeah, they don't look like we could able to. Well, they probably have way more units. Is this like an easy level or hard level?
I don't know what I clicked, but I think I picked normal. So I don't think there was anything specific. I might be able to rebuild this bad boy.
We gotta get ready.
They stopped training people for some reason, and I'm not sure why.
Get more than one. Yeah, it's been so long. Oh, you got a hero now, right?
Yeah, I have a hero. Do you need units down there?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you for your assistance there. I see.
Yeah, I'm not even close to your unit level, but yeah.
We got this. Yeah. Oh man, more units. All right, let's go.
Let's try to beat the normal computer.
Oh man, yeah, I might be getting overrun again.
Okay, I'm gonna
lost my hero.
Let's try to get rid of this guys.
Oh, there we go. Tim coming from the south side.
Yeah, but it's not helping. Yeah, I don't have enough units here to support you.
So one of those things too, where like if you just don't have the numbers, you basically don't have a chance.
They have, they're joining up too. Look at the middle. Oh yeah, they're fighting the middle here.
Oh, I see that. Okay. All right, I got a couple more units. Maybe we rally. I keep saying that, and then inevitably a big storm comes and just barely hang on.
Oh, who's hitting us? Crypt Lord. Oh wow, they got a lot of people.
Oh man, yeah. We might have to drop down to easy. It looks like I'm about lost my barracks. No defense systems.
Well, how do you build even sieges and stuff? Workshop.
Your town's so peaceful.
I know. There's nobody's here. But yeah, doesn't stay that way.
Yeah, they just took down my Great Hall. It looks like I am officially dead, unfortunately. Oh man, that was fast.
Yeah, it's gonna come over there. Oh, it's fallen. Let's start over.
Man, wow. All right, end game. Sorry about that.
We tried. But
so they were on normal.
We could even try 2-on-1. Instead.
Yeah, maybe we need to do that. All right. Create game. So game speed, I'm gonna leave on normal. We'll do shared our units if we want.
Yeah.
Private game, double dragon. All right, so this is a 2v2, but I think so. We'll do the same map.
Okay.
But then I'll only add one additional computer. Let me invite you.
But this is almost like the childhood memory of mine. You try out some kind of game, right? You play the computer, and it's just like it just like slaughters you. And next thing is like you start to okay, you start watching like replays and how do people do this kind of thing,
Right.
Try to figure out like what exactly is the way to play this, and you get better.
All right, so leave the computer on normal, but we're going just 2-on-1.
2-on-1 instead.
All right, let's do it. All right. I was spying on your town and trying to get a little bit of intel on how you organized it. So maybe I can learn it.
Yeah, I wish I knew how exactly to do it, but yeah, usually you just have to train people at least.
All right, you're in the same
spot. You have to build your hero thing pretty soon because you have to start training the hero itself.
I had a lot of gold for no real reason. I also noticed you built a bunch of burrows.
Yeah, I need more than one. Otherwise, you can't sustain it.
All right. Yeah, the
I can't
parenting
remember
thing.
exactly how to do the orders. It's been a while.
Yeah, because I'm assuming like people who play this at a high level. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
it's
there's like a
probably.
specific order with specific
Mhm.
timing and specific speed. So just be like the optimal doing things anyway. This is like part of any game, right? It's almost like a part of business too, right? There's like the
Sure.
happy normal path of doing anything, right? Once you don't really learn it, but most people kind of figure things out and it's like, oh, this is how I build a crypto business, I guess, right? For general, but you want to make it if you want to beat everybody, like go to the top, you have to do something innovative, right? You can't just be you have to do something completely different sometimes, but you also need to know how to do the normal things too. You can't just be like, it's hard to, you know,
You
completely
can't
ignore
reinvent the wheel every time, but yeah, it's interesting that because I've always had this like dream of like a first person shooter, for example, like getting dropped into a map that's truly that no one's really ever seen before. Because I feel like in real combat, you're getting placed in this environment where you might have some loose intel about which buildings are here or there, but like you really don't know that like this room exists with this window up these stairs. And like it's one thing I dislike about games is just I get into this thing where like I'm just now executing this series of events over and over and over because it's just sort of known. I really like that discovery of the unknown. Maybe that's the entrepreneur in me, but um, it
Yeah,
bugs me a little
yeah,
bit playing a game like that.
I know. But that's like I think playing these kind of games with just computer, it gets boring after a while because the computer doesn't really change that much. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of these games are really meant for you to like play with other people. Because people will start to just throw things at you all the time, like, oh, okay, we'll scout your base. You're building a bunch of units. Let's anti that, right? Start poking left and right. You basically are playing all kind of like different small mini games within the, that
Right.
kind of thing. So the game was more interesting. That you basically have to start to practice different small details of the game over and over.
Do you feel like LLMs will start to really show up and shine there about just at least creating a strategy layer for the CPU's AI to like not necessarily that every unit sort of has AI, but like at least it's like, oh, like we want to try this particular philosophy and go for it. Like, do you feel like that's going to change things dramatically?
I think LM's going to change a lot of things, or just AI in general, right? Because AI is changing so fast. But like changing industry takes forever. So
Yeah.
I think we're at the cusp of so many different things happening right now. So I'm excited. Like as an investor, we're optimistic, right? We're going to take different bets. Like I backed a company called Rosebud. It's like a text to game generation. Um, you write out what you want, what game do you want, and it just generates a full game for you. You know,
Oh, that's cool.
so it's pretty wild. I mean, it's not perfect. Like the games it can generate is like pretty simple to start, but at the same time, like it is pretty astonishing, like what kind of things it can do. So
Yeah, I feel like I feel like I because I'm so deep into it. I'm like expecting games to have more LLM sort of integration into their stuff already. you know, like there was a lot of talk about
I
this
want
new
AI
college.
everywhere.
You're right. It's like, oh, that college football 25 clearly must have, an AI of some kind that is thinking about the recruiting aspect or something like that. So it's like
Yeah.
this expectation for me as a sort of a creator is like also probably too high.
Yeah, yeah, but that's why it takes forever to really change, an industry. Like, there's so many gatekeeping, there's so many people,
Mm.
So generally speaking, it's just harder. Yeah.
Have you found the enemy at all yet?
No. But
Okay.
I start to remember things. We have to take your hero and start to level him up, find
Okay.
different creeps, and like, and get them to be a better hero. So you had to take your hero almost like RPG style kind of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So
And
we want
like,
to take him. Well, I want to take that he should roam around a little bit.
yeah. So take a bunch of units and roam with it, basically.
Okay. And
'Cause
so
then
he's gonna
you
go
can,
and like look for power ups.
yeah, there's small creeps like around you, like there's like different like creatures and that kind of thing. There's only one exit, that's why it keeps.
Yeah, that element is definitely a new element that I don't think Warcraft 2 had any sort of like development of a.
Yeah, it added the hero part of it quite a bit. So are you working on crypto a lot still? Like, what did you learn so far working on crypto for so long?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in crypto. I've learned a lot. I mean, I've been more in like kind of the DAOs and governance side of things.
Yeah.
Just really fascinated about that world. I'm less on the technical side of things. More due to like a limitation of like that's not really fully how my brain thinks. But I think there's so many UX challenges, really simple UX challenges with it, and so I feel like a lot of the DeFi stuff that has really taken off. Like might actually be part of the killer use case. Like I look at
Yeah.
sometimes of the numbers that are happening with even just stable coins, and you're like, oh, like stable coins might just be one of the killer apps for this entire ecosystem that we never talk about, right? We sort of
Yeah.
jumped all the really fun, exciting things, but like, maybe that's part of it. But I think the new movement that I'm really spending a lot of time thinking about is just kind of RWAs and tokenizing things. And I feel like with a lot of, BlackRock and whatnot starting to get deeper into that, I'm feeling optimistic that maybe just tokenization of assets is also the other killer app. Like maybe we don't have to have these really complicated structures and mechanisms to do these really consumer heavy things.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's just a rail technology. We talked about infrastructure before. It's like, I don't know, like maybe we don't need decentralized social networks. Like while cool, maybe that's just not where society ends up going, but the payment rails maybe is fully decentralized and things like that. So I don't know, a lot of complicated thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just went to their base, harassed them.
Oh, you found their base?
Yeah.
I found these huge ogre guys that like,
Yeah.
I feel
some
like
some of them are pretty hard to beat, so you have to find smaller creeps.
Okay.
To like play.
Yeah, I
with.
started running away. All right, you found their base. Oh, is that the yellow piece? Okay, I see. All right. It's kind of cool. There's like these rock, like I can't climb everywhere I want to. Are you buying like potions or anything like that? Is that a thing
No,
that you're
not
doing?
yet. Not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. You could.
And you built a second barracks. I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
Okay, I teamed up, so I think we're ready to do some interesting stuff here.
Yeah, some of these guys are dangerous. Level 6 warlord. I don't know exactly what that means, but doesn't seem great.
Yeah, I just beat the warlord. Yeah, if you have any units around you, usually you're good.
Yeah, I think I'll be all right. Can you train 2 heroes? I seem to be having like a
Yeah, you can more than one. Yeah.
hero
Yeah.
block.
But you usually
Requires
want
a
to make sure
stronghold.
you level up one of them to further enough. Gonna try to build another town hall.
I don't know how to build a stronghold.
Oh, interesting.
And so the power-ups are like the things that the folks are dropping.
Yeah.
I think he's powered up.
Yeah, you can pick it up because it gives you some cool stuff.
Yeah, they have inventory. Yeah, this is I'm feeling old right now. Like my mom playing this game. Do you know what a
You're ready.
stronghold is? I'm having
Go at this guy.
a hard time.
Ready to go harass these guys?
All right. I can
He's
send
probably
some.
way stronger at this point, but I don't want to sit here forever.
Yeah, because there's like a little bit of a compounding problem, right?
Yeah, you wait forever. They gotta do stuff for you.
Right. How many heroes are you rocking with right now?
Just one for now. Yeah, I haven't
Okay.
built anything else, but I should probably build more.
I can't seem to make a second one. It keeps saying I need to make a stronghold, and I haven't figured out what that means.
yeah,
yet.
you had to build another town probably.
Oh, like another great hall.
Do
Okay.
you want to go try harassing?
Yeah. Yeah, I have some
Alright,
troops.
I'm gonna go from the right. You want to try from the
Okay,
left?
let me send some units. So you're going from the right, you said?
There, his right hand side. Yeah.
Okay. I have to pass by these really large dudes.
Oh yeah.
But-
Yeah, you just don't want to wake them up.
There we go. Yeah, they seemed awake as I walked by, which I wasn't loving.
it's
But I did thought maybe that's because it was during the daytime. Like, I don't know if there's a
Oh, maybe.
daytime nighttime situation here. Oh, they're gone. You must have wiped them out, Tim.
I think no.
just-
It's a computer.
Oh, the computer wiped them out. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Looks like I don't have a direct shot at them, but I can come up and around.
All right, I can see this base. There's nobody here.
Is that you dropping those meteors?
No, it's Oh yeah, it's me. Oh, he's trying to hit me. Oh, he has big dragons and stuff. Wow. Is it you?
Yep.
Nice. Let's see how
Coming
far
from
we
the
can
other
do this.
side here. Oh, lost my hero. That's not great.
All right, I think we got this.
Yeah? gonna make
Looks
sure
like we
I'm
really
making
have
enough
enough
units back at the base. Or is that main thing in the middle of the town hall? Is that what we're?
Yeah, we're just gonna get rid of his units, I think. And once you get rid of his units, he's good. Yeah, he doesn't have that much units left.
Yeah, we might have pulled this off. I see you got more guys coming too.
Yeah. We're trying to
Oh man.
produce more.
Yeah, this might have been a one raid.
Got this. Okay, let's stop the peasants.
Oh, so you can revive heroes too. I see. It's all coming together, Tim. Yeah, I think like the crypto thing is it reminds me. I use the analogy a lot of times around the old kind of railroad story that gets told over and over about it's just like there was this feeling obviously that it was the railroads were inevitable. All these entrepreneurs were building into it. All these investors were investing into it, and it just turned out that whole cycle ended up being really unproductive for most entrepreneurs and investors. But then all of those ideas ended up coming, to society and to the market. But it was more had to do with, Standard Oil and U.S. Steel just needing a shit ton of trains hauling steel and oil across the country. And that's what nailed the industry for it. And it's like, that might be the crypto story. It's like, yeah, maybe this is exactly how everything works in 50 years, but maybe we don't even recall Ethereum and Bitcoin, and although those two might be the ones that have the staying power. But it's like, oh yeah, like when you do transactions online, like why wouldn't you use blockchain? It's just sort of obvious. But like all these tokens and projects and DAOs and all that are lost to history.
Yeah, I feel like crypto, if you worked at, because I was a VPN to Cosmos, right, for some time, and working on crypto is such an interesting experience because part of it you're learning how everybody is trying to change the world in very different ways in the same technology, right? Like that's super fascinating, but at the same time, like people's motivations at play,
yeah,
often you kind of like tell right away. It's like, okay, this is not the pump and dump schemes kind of like it's obviously everyone's going to do this, but but it's almost like the default way people start to do cookie cutting, like you're expecting dump and pump, right? Like this is the only way to do business in this space almost. And
and it's so hard to because everyone's like pattern matching to your point around like creating traction or the perception of traction, because I mean, who's really to say that Litecoin is got the win.
We got
it. Wow, that was too easy now.
So 2-on-1 was easier because I don't think he was able to like attack. He actually had way more units than we have, but he just kind of stayed there, right? But because I poked him a little bit too, I think we just also I just remember how to play this game. The first thing was just like a warm. I was like, how did I?
Yeah. Look at your unit score. You were absolutely. I don't know what those scores exactly mean, but you were well over double on many dimensions compared to me. So.
Oh, really? I have no idea. I'm just let's see.
So yeah, your hero score actually looks like your unit score and your hero score, but our resource score was the same. But it looks
so
like
heroes, you have to level them up. So you have like a level 7, right, and level 3. So you have to take your hero and start hitting things early. And I remember that's like part of the game. Is if you level your hero up, the hero's abilities makes a huge difference. When it comes to like the game. I gotta run to
appreciate it, Tim. Thank you. Thank you for being on the pod.
Of course, man.
Be well.